Hi, this is Brian, and I have a little bit longer video for you today, but I think it will be really helpful to you to understand the prohibition on MSV in Wisconsin's Act 20 and to help clarify some of the myths and facts you heard in the last presentation. So let me start by reviewing some of the myths and add some more context around them and a few more facts. First off, the presenter said it is a myth that students need reading strategies like guessing words based on the first letter and looking at the illustration. I'm going to call this partially true. First off, correct, that is not an appropriate strategy to use just the first letter in a word. And then as far as using pictures, Dr. Linda Dorn always said that the meaning of the story resides in the text and the illustrations are there as a support. Now let's build on that. A fact is students do need strategies, and if we don't teach students to be strategic, we'll never develop self-regulated readers who read for deep comprehension. And now more about the first letter. Here I'm referencing Heidi Ann Mesmer and a recent article she wrote in The Reading Teacher. She was one of our presenters for the Summer Institute in 2024, and she describes how partial decoding plus context can be a problem. And this is what proponents of the science of reading are calling out in the use of MSV, even though that's a whole nother misunderstanding. So here's what she wrote. Using context as a primary word recognition strategy is the mark of compensation for a lack of code knowledge. Context-free word recognition is the hallmark of skilled reading, even when the reader is in connected text. When readers rely on context for word recognition, they also don't retain words, which might have something to do with orthographic mapping. So let's take a look at what Heidi Ann Mesmer says about using context, and she calls it a matter of timing, when and how, not if. So first off, skilled readers use context after decoding as a cross-checking device. So when you hear a student using context, you can ask yourself, why is this reader using context? Is it to compensate for a lack of knowledge about grapheme and phoneme relationships or decoding skill? Or is it to cross-check the pronunciation of a decoded word? I will put a link to Heidi Ann Mesmer's article below in the description. So here's where we help. In 2023, Carla Sofis and I, in consultation with Wiley Blevins and others, revised the reading behavior checklist from the comprehensive intervention model, and we adapted the running record form. So to help you comply with Act 20, and more importantly, to assess, teach, and scaffold your students, I highly recommend that you start using these checklists, especially for a student in an intervention, whether it be in the classroom, Tier 2, or Tier 3. And you can see there are 4 examples on the screen because we continue with the continuum we have of emergent through transitional levels. Let's take a look. I'm going to start by showing you an example of the emergent checklist. First, you'll notice that there's no mention of MSV on the form, so that helps you comply with the law while still teaching for strategic behaviors. You'll also notice that below the grade level, we put the types of text that students would be reading. At the emergent level, the text will include quality decodable and quality level text, each used for specific purposes. Under the student's name, you can mark if you're using this form for progress monitoring, in other words, assessment of a new text, or reread of a previously read text as we do in guided reading. The next box reminds us that the goal of the processing checklist is fluent and flexible orchestration of word reading, language structures, and text comprehension. Those should all sound familiar to you. The next boxes are for marking if the behavior was unprompted, or if it was prompted after the reading as a teaching point. Write down your prompt and the level of support. At the emergent level, the first behavior we want students to get under control is one-to-one matching. That has not changed. This next section has the most revisions to not only comply with Act 20, but also to avoid the problem of partial decoding plus context. At the point of difficulty simply refers to the fact that the word is not yet a sight word and the student needs to do some work. The behaviors here is always about searching and blending. And the bold words match the phonics continuum from Wiley-Blevins. In this case, students are searching and blending one-syllable short vowel words. The words in italics highlight that we are looking for a student to decode a word and then cross-check their phonetic approximation with language structures and with text meaning. That too should sound familiar. At the bottom of every checklist, we list the specific phonic principles as a support to you, the teacher, the ones that would need to be taken under control at that level. Let's shift one level up on the continuum for a brief example. This is the beginning early level, or the beginning of first grade. Now notice here that the text the student might be reading include grade level text, which could be an excerpt from language workshop or language phase brought over to guided reading for a specific purpose. The challenge here is to think of guided reading as guiding the reading and not just about moving up levels through the guided reading levels. At the beginning early level, students are searching through words and blending them together that contain blends and diagraphs. Again, the words in bold indicate the shifts moving through the phonics continuum. And at the bottom, the phonics principles for early first grade are quite extensive, as you can see. You should also record the student's fluency and use the comprehension guide to check on comprehension. All of these forms, including the comprehension guide highlighted in the slide, are available from your building literacy coach and to affiliated districts linked below the video. Now let's do a brief fact check on MSV, which is misunderstood by many. In fact, Marie Claire already in the 1980s shifted from using the terms queuing with systems to the more productive term sources of information, because these are all sources of information that readers use. And she started to make this shift based on emerging research back then about the importance of orthographic knowledge for rapid and efficient word reading. So now you may be asking, well, now how do I go about prompting for all of this? Use those reading behavior checklists. They will be helpful to you. But also your literacy coaches and I recommend this article from Dr. Nell Duke as a great text to study with your team. I also have it linked in the description. But in this article, depending on what a student may be asking for help with, she offers several different kinds of prompts. I distilled her prompt suggestions into this single sheet, which you can print out. However, you really need to study the article to understand when and why to use them. So in summary, continue to teach reading strategies in language workshop, reading workshop, and refer to Teaching for Deep Comprehension for more information. Make sure you're not asking students to partially decode a word and then use context to guess the rest. And then use the reading behavior checklist to support your assessment, teaching, and prompting. I hope this was helpful for you. Thank you for your attention, and reach out to your building literacy coach for support and any questions that you have.